Hi, it's Margaret, and thank you for joining me here on this beautifully sunny yet somewhat chilly day on the Gardening Me. Today, I am going to do something that I actually thought I would never do. Um, I'm not a big one for trends. I usually, look at most of the trends that kind of scroll through Instagram and Facebook and often give them a little bit of an eye roll before moving on. But there was one post that I saw in the last few days that I thought, it had me kind of scratching my head and going, would this actually work? And that trend is using snail rolls to start your seeds. And no, that actually has absolutely nothing to do with snails. Now, the main purpose of this method of seed starting is actually to grow a large quantity of seeds in a relatively small space. And I believe the person that started this particular trend, her name is Frida Sober over on Instagram. I believe that that's the reason why she started using this method, or she came up with this method. That, though, was not the reason that kind of gave me pause on this, because I don't need to grow tons and tons of seedlings. Certainly not of the same variety of anything usually. What was interesting to me was the kind of long root system that this method could produce without the need of using root trainers. A lot of people use root trainers when growing sweet peas. And because I've never been overly successful at growing sweet peas, and I actually think it's not to do with root trainers, it's because I haven't started them early enough, but that's beside the point. Because I've never had success, I didn't really want to invest in something that I may end up using once or twice and then not using again because it just didn't work out for me in my garden. Now, I am actually growing sweet peas right now. They're in my basement. They have, on the most part, germinated, and they're in kind of long, skinny pots. So I thought what I would do is I would give this particular method a try as well. Now, I have a variety of packets of sweet peas here that I wanted to use up because most of them are 2 to 3 years old, and one variety in particular I know did really well. I got practically 100% germination downstairs. So I'm thinking if this method doesn't work, then it's not the seeds anyway. And the other ones I just figured I do need to use them up, so I'll just throw them in anyway. Now, I'm doing a slight variation on what she does. When she creates her rolls, she uses this very thin foam to roll up her seedlings, and I don't have any of that. It's the kind of stuff that you often see when you buy a picture frame or something and it's kind of laid on top of the glass. It's that kind of stuff, and I don't have that. So what I am actually going to use instead is wax paper. Now, I have seen people use other materials when doing this, like cloth and burlap and that type of thing. And while those materials are great because they're breathable, so you do get a little bit of root pruning happening, especially around the outside perimeter of the roll, my main concern would be that the roots would start kind of interweaving themselves in the fabric or burlap, so that when you eventually unroll it, there'll be a lot more breakage and damage to those roots. So I didn't really want to go down that route. And in addition, I think that if you use cloth or burlap, then the soil is probably much more likely to dry out quickly. So that was the other consideration as well. So we'll try wax paper and see how that goes. So I'm not just going to do sweet peas though. I thought I would also do another flower that I am generally very successful with, and that is marigolds. I have here a couple of packets of marigolds. These are kind of the same thing. This is a Baker Creek pack of Colossus Red Gold bicolor, and this one is actually the same flower, but these are actually seeds that I saved. So I figured I have a ton of seeds for this one. I actually have an area that right now has very small little shrubs and stuff like that, and it will have small perennials that I'm hoping will get quite a bit bigger in the next couple of years, but in the meantime I have space to fill. So I thought that would actually be something that I would be interested in growing a lot of. And since I've had success with them in the past, we'll see how they do when I do this method of sowing on them. Okay, so I'm gonna range the camera here and let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is add quite a bit of water to the soil, and I am getting it actually much wetter than I normally would if I was sowing it in a pot. I'm basically completely saturating it. I want to make sure there are no spots that end up drying more quickly. Even more than that, I'm thinking. It has to be pretty wet like that. I think that's good. That's like pretty wet, and that would be where I take a handful and I am wringing water out like that. So I think that's good. You know what? I'll add just a tiny bit more as well, just to be on the safe side. So I got my soil all nicely wet here. Now I'm going to just set this aside and do my waxed paper. I don't even know how long to do this. I need something to weigh it down on that end. So how long is this? Oh, I need more something else to weigh it down. There. Oh, there. Take a piece of wood, weigh this down. So I don't know how long this is, but maybe 3 feet long, maybe 4 feet long. I'll do a little bit more. I'm actually not sure how many seeds I have to fit in here, so I'll do a little more than I think I'll need, and then we'll figure it out. So I'm going to cut this on one end here, and what I'm going to do is fold it over in order to get that 7-inch height. I'm wondering whether I should put the folded over part on the top or on the bottom of the roll. I'm thinking I'm going to put it on the bottom of the roll because once these are sown, they are watered from the top to begin with, but they are watered from the bottom after that, like once you do that original sowing. If I do the fold on the bottom, it'll just make it sturdier when I do that bottom watering. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to just cut it like that. This would definitely be easier inside, but you have to take advantage of the great weather while you have it. So I'm just going to go like this. I'll fold it up from here just a couple of inches so that I get a good, I don't know what that is, maybe 7-inch height. I'm actually thinking that's a little too much. Maybe a little less than that there. How much is this? This is, yeah, that's about just 7 inches. I use my finger to measure stuff actually. From one end to the other when it's fully stretched like that is 6 inches. So that's 6 inches there. So that's another inch or so. So I think that's good. So 7 inches. And now I'm just going to start putting my soil on top here. I might actually have to get some more soil. It looks like I may run out. Just put some soil down there to hold it down. This is like maybe 1/4 inch thick. Wow, this is going to, I think, form quite a thick roll. I may not have a big enough container to put it in. We'll see. Because once it's rolled up, I'm going to put it in a container so that it kind of stands up. And that container, of course, has to be larger than the final width of this. So we'll see how that is. So I want to use up all of my packets of seed here. And since I know that Beaujolais germinated for me quite well downstairs, I'm going to do that one first. And I'm going to kind of spread it out along the length here. And I'll just intermingle, I guess, the other varieties in between that. Now, what she does, and I'll be doing that, I think, for the marigold seeds, is she rolls up the roll and then she sows the seed and then she waters it in. But since these are quite large seeds and they do need to be buried a little bit, like 1/4 to 1/2 inch, I'm going to be putting them down approximately that 1/4 to 1/2 inch now, and then I'll be rolling it in after. And hopefully that works out okay. Ideally, I'm thinking I want the peas spaced about an inch or so apart. But as I said, I'm just going to use up what I have here. If it ends up being a little closer or a little further apart than an inch, that's not a big deal. I don't think anyway. So, oh, and the last thing is I did not soak the seeds. And that is because I've been doing a lot of reading, and there are quite a few growers actually of sweet peas that are adamant that soaking the seed is really not necessary. So that's what I did downstairs. As I said, I got pretty good germination. So I am not soaking the seeds. I'm just sowing them as is. So here, I'm just going to go like this and kind of press it, I guess, into the soil and spread them out sort of evenly along here. You know what? I started kind of doing it down here. I'm thinking that's a little too deep. So I'm going to move them a little bit up so they're closer to that 1/4 inch mark. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to shift as I roll this up afterwards. I hope they stay in place. That's kind of why I'm pushing them into the soil. So we'll see. These are a lot more seeds than I thought I had. I'm actually going way closer now just to use up these seeds. As it turns out, I actually had enough seeds, even though there wasn't that many of them, I guess. Well, they didn't look like that many anyway, to sow the entire row, and I'm even closer than an inch apart. So I think I am not going to do these two guys, but I am going to put all of these in because these inside, I don't even have any germination on these yet, and I'm thinking they're just not going to do anything for me. So might as well use them all up, and if something germinates in here, so much the better, but I'm not counting on it. I'm just going to go and put them kind of in between the ones that are already here. Okay, so I've laid all the seeds out. Now comes the tricky part, and that's rolling it up. Now on Instagram, she makes this look super easy. But you know how some of these things are. They look super easy when somebody has been doing them 100 times, but when you first do it, it doesn't go that well. I am going to start here on this end, and basically you are just rolling it up. Oh, this is going to be fat. I think this is going to be a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. I see a few seeds falling out already. Okay, roll, roll, roll. Okay, roll, roll, roll. Uh-oh. Oh, okay, well, here we go. Unforeseen circumstance. As I was rolling it up, my wax paper broke here, and that's one of the things that I was kind of hesitant about with wax paper is it does have a tendency to get weak when water is added to it. So I think what I might do is put another piece of wax paper underneath this and then kind of roll that up together. And I'm hoping that once it's together and kind of in a pot that, and you're not really touching it and lifting it up and down, that it should be okay. So we'll see. Okay, here we are. Okay, so I've rolled it up. I am going to use some tape here to keep it closed, but I'm not sure how well that's going to hold. I'll use a few pieces. Okay, so this part is the bottom here, because that's the part that's rolled up there. This is the top. I want there to be the soil underneath here, so I don't want this sticking out. Well, you know what? I'm actually going to roll it back. There, I was going to cut it off, but I'll just roll it back. And there we go. I'm wondering if using parchment paper may work better. Maybe I'll go inside and grab some parchment paper and use that for the marigolds. Okay, so I've done that. Okay, so we're all done. Here's the roll. Here's what it looks like on the top. Now I'm going to put it in a pot. Now I got a variety of different pots because I didn't know how big this roll was going to be. I think this pot here is a good size, just lots of drainage holes because it's the pot that I am going to be placing when I eventually bottom water this into a container of water to have the water soak up. So I'm already concerned that when I unroll this, it's going to end up falling apart, but I guess we'll see. So there we go. It's in the pot. And here we are. Now what she says to do is you top water it for your first watering. And then every watering after that, you bottom water. So I think what I might do is just cut this here so that I don't have a lot here on the top. Like that. Okay, I think that's good. I'm just gonna kind of push it down a little bit. Okay, so that's that. So now I'm gonna bottom water. Let me just get all this out of the way here. Actually, I'm gonna put this in here, there, so that I don't get water all over the place. And now I'm gonna top water. I'm using this watering can with this very fine rosette so that it doesn't kind of dislodge the seeds. So there. So that's the sweet peas. And now I am going to do the marigolds. I think, going to use parchment paper, and I'm also not going to sew them with the roll open. I am going to do her other method because marigolds are basically sown like only 1/8 of an inch or so deep in the soil. So her other method is you make the roll first, then you put the seed on, then you water it in. And I'm thinking once it's watered in, it'll more or less be that 1/8 of an inch or so of soil. It isn't a lot of soil you put when you're sowing them in pots. So that's what I'm going to do. So next one up. So I have here the parchment paper, and I think I'm going to do it about this long, which is about, I don't know, 2 feet, maybe 2.5 feet. And I'm wondering if I should fold it again. I'm going to do half, I think, which is about 6 inches, I guess. So I'm actually going to cut it in half this time. And I already got more soil and got it quite wet. So I'll just put that down. So now I'm going to roll it up, and I'm going to use string to secure it because tape does not stick to parchment at all. So we'll see how successful I am with that. So we're going to start on this end and just roll it up. Okay. Now, I'm going to secure it now. And I'm just going to do a little bow so that I can easily untie it. Because the other thing I've seen her do is unroll and add a bit more soil instead of potting up. Again, not sure how that will work, especially with the wax paper. I don't think that will work at all. I think that wax paper is going to end up falling apart. But maybe with the parchment paper, it won't be as bad. So here we have the parchment paper one. So now I'm going to pick a container for this one. Maybe this pot here. Will it fit in here? Yes, it does. Perfect. Okay. So here's the pot. Now she does firm the soil down a little bit after doing this. So I'm just going to do the same. Okay, so now we have this little spiral here to sow our seeds in. So I'm going to do the ones in the Baker Creek packet first. And I'll just kind of sprinkle them on. Marigold seeds are kind of big. They're not teeny. Here, I don't know if you can see that. Okay, and now I'm going to add some from the seeds that I saved. Basically, I'm just making sure that I have seeds along all parts of the snail. And now I'm going to put this in here, and I am going to water this in as well. I see a lot of seeds floating around in there. I think I'm going to push them down a little bit because, as I said, when I sow these indoors, normally I sow them with like maybe 1/8 of an inch of soil on top, and a lot of these are kind of floating. So I'm just going to kind of press them down, and hopefully they'll get covered up with just that little bit of soil. And that is that. That's what it looks like. The water is still kind of seeping through. So here we have it all rolled up, so to speak. We have the marigold snail roll and we have the sweet pea snail roll, but we are not done yet. So now I am going to bring these down into the basement. So the one thing is these are quite tall. So normally when I sow seeds, I put them in a tray and I put a cover on top in order to kind of keep that humidity high, but I can't do that with these, obviously. So what I am going to do is probably put like a bag or something like that on top. Not really sure yet. Let's head down to the basement and finish up. Okay, so here are the sweet peas, and they are just on the ground. They don't really need any heat. In fact, they don't want heat to germinate. So I just put a clear bag. This is one of those produce bags that you get in the produce department at the grocery store. And here are the marigolds. Now for these, I put them on a heat mat because they do like pretty warm temperatures to germinate. And as well, I put the grocery bag on top there. Marigolds don't need light to germinate, but they also don't need darkness. So it's easier just to put them under the lights, and that way, as soon as they start germinating, they're getting some light. And that's it for today. So let me know in the comments what you think about this trend. Do you think this is a keeper? Do you think it's just a passing trend and by next year it will be long forgotten? I'm not sure. I'm kind of on the fence on this one, but I guess it all depends on how it works out. I will make sure to keep you up to date, either good or bad, on how this works out for me. I kind of am already thinking that the sweet peas may not be the best in that wax paper that was falling apart. Anyhow, we'll see. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we will see you next time. Bye.